Hello everyone and welcome back to Stampin Squirrels. It's Debbie here, Squirrel 2, and now I'm going to show you this kind of vintage looking, using some scraps of DSP. Some are from the current catalogue, some are from the old last year's DSP. And I've kind of like sponged it so that it's got that sort of vintage look around the outside. So I'm going to show you, it's a bit of a scrappy card method really, and then we're going to do a bit of just die cutting and stamping here and a little bit of sponging as well. So pretty easy to put together. Let me give you the dimensions. So first of all you need a white card base. This is a card base. This card base, it measures a 4 1/8 by 5 7/8 when it is folded together. It's just a white base. You need a piece of Mossy Meadow cardstock which measures 4 inches by 5 3/4, and then you need some scraps of DSP, so one at 3.5 inches by 2 inches, one at 2 inches by 2 inches, one at 1 3/4 by 3.5, and one at 1 3/4 by 2. And then you need a piece of scrap red and a piece of scrap white, because we're going to be cutting those out with these layering circle dies. And then this is a piece of braided linen trim, which is kind of new for this holiday season from the Stampin' Up catalogue. What's really great about this linen trim is that you can actually pull it apart and make it much thicker. If I can just give you a little close-up of that and show you what I'm suggesting. Will that focus on it, I wonder? There. So it's really great for that kind of thing. So you can make your bow as big or as small as you want it to be. So let's get started. So I'm just going to take a bone folder. I'm going to give my card base a really nice sharp edge, and I'm going to take my piece of Mossy Meadow and I'm just going to stick that down onto the card. Lovely. And then it's a simple case of just deciding how you're going to layer up your pieces of DSP on the card. So I had that one like this last time. Let me pop that like that so you can see. I think I'm going to put it at the top this time. This one at the bottom. This one here. And then this one here. So that's how I'm going to lay them out, but before I do, I'm going to sponge them to give them a bit of an aged sort of look. So I'm just going to move that off so I know which way I'm going to put them afterwards. Now you can actually use a sponge or a finger dauber to do this. It's entirely up to you how you do it. I've got this little gadget that I use sometimes when I'm just browning things off to make them vintagey. I'm just going to find my little tools to do that. So let me just give you an example. So you can either use, if you've got makeup sponges or latex sponges, you can just use those if you prefer, if it gives you the better finish that you're looking for. Or if you wanted to and you only had finger daubers, you could use finger daubers and just lightly daub around the edges of your DSP. It's entirely what you feel comfortable with. But for today, I'm going to be using this little gadget that I've got. And I can't get everything to fit back in my drawer, that's it. And I'm just going to pop and find a suitable brown. So I've selected some crumb cake. Let's see how we get on with the crumb cake. So I'm just going to stamp it with your sponge, whatever you prefer. And this is going to make a mess of grid paper, but I'm just going to take it and just deliver some grunge to the edges of my DSP. So that's my DSP all grunged up and vintaged, whichever you prefer to call it. Let's pop the crumb cake away. out of the way. And I'm going to stick this now onto the card base. So we've got the card base, and it really is just a case of sticking this down. So I would advise that you line it up first, because you need to decide how close you want to put these together. I've cut these so they've got a really nice even spacing between them, and they should all be pretty much the same. So once you're kind of happy, what you can do is stick one and then take it from there. So we've lined that up, that's on there. I'm just going to lift that up for you to see. Like I said, this is a really great way to use up scraps of DSP as well. If you've got different colours, real red and green hanging about from previous years, that kind of thing. It's a really great way. So I'm going to bring on my two scraps now. I've got a scrap of real red and a scrap of white. And again, I'm using the real red ink to go with it. And I've got an old, from an old stamp set for Stampin' Up from previous holiday season, Deck the Halls with Boughs of Holly. And then I'm going to cut that out with the circle die, like that. And I'm also going to cut with the layering circles. This is kind of like the, I don't know what you call it, a boggly edge. And I'm going to cut that out as well. So I'll be back just as soon as I've cut those out. Okay, and now I'm going to stick these together with some dimensionals. But before I do, I'm going to take the opportunity to just bring back my sponge again. And I'm just going to go around the outside of that white one. Now, you may not prefer this kind of grungy sponging effect on yours, so in which case you can just leave it white. But if, like me, you do, to give it that vintage Christmas look, then just get your sponge and any brown, light brown really is best, and just give it a little sponge. I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back. Okay, now the other thing for this, before I put it, is let's bring in the ribbon. So if I bring back my previous card here, you'll see that I've just put this loop underneath the ribbon. So before I stick this down, I'm going to pop the ribbon in, but before I do is I'm going to unbraid it slightly. So I'm just going to take it between my fingers and just pull it apart. Now this ribbon, I've found, has got a miraculous ability to push itself back together again. So if you pull it too far ahead or apart, you can just pull it back like that and it just goes back into position. So I just want it a little bit pulled apart. Okay, so I've pulled that apart now. And that piece of ribbon weight, it measures about 7 inches. And I'm just going to put it into a loop like this and cross it over. I want one side to be slightly longer than the other, like that. And I'm probably going to put a little bit of, let's put a little bit of glue down there so I can secure my ribbon into position. Just like that. Peel off the dimensionals. And then I'm going to pop that on. Okay, so I've popped that on dimensionals and I've popped it on with my ribbon. And I'm just going to now secure that into position. I'm going to use some more dimensionals to do it. So just take a couple of dimensionals on the back. Lovely, and all that really leaves me now is to put some gems on there, and I'm using the red rhinestone basic gems. Okay, so there you have it. 2 grungy Deck the Halls with Boughs of Holly, fa la 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 Christmas cards using scraps of DSP with real red and green, and some of the new linen braided trim. Pretty easy to do, great way of using up scraps of DSP that you don't have enough even to put on a card, so pretty simple. Scrappy vintage Christmas card look. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for joining me, and we hope to see you again in Stampin' Squirrels. Merry Christmas!